Okay, here's my question today. How can one leader be able to manage the most stressful and dysfunctional organization with skill and tact and success, while another leader becomes overwhelmed and burned out? How can one leader manage to stay above the fray within their organization, while another leader becomes enmeshed in the drama and even gets to a place where they start to contribute to the dysfunction? I want to begin a journey with you over the next several episodes, talking about the 7 indicators of emotional maturity and what that means. Today, I'm going to give you 2 ways that leaders become emotionally immature. So stick around as we unbox your leadership and unbox relationships.
I'm Dr. Robert Davis, family life educator and relationship coach, and welcome to Unboxed, a frank and straightforward conversation about relationships. We're going to talk about family, church, workplace, and all other types of relationships. Join me for the next few moments as we unbox the power and potential of relationships and help you to live your best life.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Unboxed. Again, I'm your host, Dr. Robert Davis. So glad that you joined us. Do me a favor before we get started. Make sure that you like, subscribe, and share. That's right. Like, subscribe, and share. And if you're listening to this via podcast, please make sure that you check us out at www.swg-unboxed.org. That's swg-unboxed.org. There you can learn about Unbox, what we're doing in our community, as well as ways that we can strengthen your organization. Okay, so I started today by asking some people, asking why it is that some people deal better in stressful situations, both internally and externally. And let me just break it down. I don't want to get too deep in this. Let me break it down. Because as leaders, sometimes we can present as having things under control when there's actually a lot of emotional immaturity going on internally. In other words, we're being very reactive to what is going on around us. And you cannot mask it but for a very short amount of time, because human beings have this, I guess it's kind of like an innate instinct that allows us to be able to pick up on the anxiety in others, even when they're presenting as having low levels of anxiety. I don't know, we just pick it up like they say dogs can smell fear. It just happens. So, some people are able to genuinely, both internally and externally, manage their anxiety, which means that they are able to manage what is going on in the inside and what's going on in the outside. Because, a lot of you, and I want to say this, a lot of you are able to manage what goes on in the outside very well. You're not cussing people out, throwing stuff, arguing, hollering, and screaming. You present like a professional, and that's good. But the greatest level is when you can also have that same internal calm. And that's what we kind of are striving for. Okay, so I talked about what are the indicators of emotional immaturity and how does a person become emotionally immature. I said I would give you 2 things. And the very first reason is our emotional pre-programming from our family of origin. That's right. Our emotional pre-programming from our family of origin. In other words, all of us are born, I'm going to read a quote to you in just a second. All of us are born into a particular family, a particular neighborhood, particular school, particular community, particular set of beliefs, and that kind of writes the program onto our emotional computer about how we're supposed to handle things. Let me read a quote to you. It's by a very brilliant guy. If you haven't met him, you want to meet him. His name is Dr. Robert L. Davis. I mean, just a genius. And you notice that I use that joke every single time that I use a quote for myself. Maybe I need to come up with something new. Okay, here's the quote. Y'all ready? Based on the way our families interacted with us, as well as the way they managed relationships, our emotional computers are pre-programmed to respond and to react to difficult people and difficult relationship situations in very specific ways. Again, based on the way our families interact with us, as well as the way they manage their relationships, our emotional computers are pre-programmed. And I could go in more into about the whole generational thing, because the programming goes down from one generation to the next. So when I purchased my computer, I believe the operating system at the time was El Capitan or something like that. Now it's Mojave or whatever it is. But what was the operating system 10 years ago has a direct impact on my computer's operating system today. And the better that I can understand how that system operates and how it was programmed, the better I can, maneuver and work through and integrate other software, et cetera, et cetera. So one of the reasons why individuals are emotionally immature is because they were pre-programmed to be emotionally immature. The way that they observed their family managing relationships was in an immature way. They saw their family being very reactive. They saw their family, always being very enmeshed and everything else, fused together and just, every dysfunctional way that you can think about. They saw this and it became a part of who they are. The second that people become emotionally immature, the second reason is our exposure to chronic anxiety. Our exposure to chronic anxiety. And again, there's been a lot of studies around this, but let me read a quote to you from Michael E. Kerr's. His book is Bowen's Theory Secrets, Revealing the Hidden Life of Family. This is what Michael Kerr says. Those who are the most emotionally immature are the most vulnerable to high levels of chronic anxiety in their lifetimes. Chronic anxiety drives a chronic stress response that presumably strongly contributes to a person's stress responsibility over a lifetime. And I paraphrase that. I did paraphrase it. That's not a direct quote. That is a paraphrase quote. But those who are most emotionally immature are the ones that are most vulnerable to high levels of chronic anxiety in their lifetimes. The truth of the matter is the human mind cannot remain in fight or flight mode for prolonged periods without it having a deleterious effect on our emotional maturity and our emotional functioning. Many studies have been conducted showing the effects of prolonged exposure to stress and high levels of anxiety. We have diagnoses such as post-traumatic stress disorder, you name it, it has been shown. So some individuals have more of a difficult time being emotionally mature in relationships, within the workplace, etc., because they have lived a life that is highly exposed to chronic stress, or that is exposed to high levels and high durations of chronic stress. That's just not how we're supposed to live. A life should be more in a mode of calm. And so sometimes, you see people that kind of like drama and follows them everywhere they go. You sit down with that person and you really begin to explore the events of their life. When you see a person that is just a walking drama factory, there's a high percentage of a chance that individual, lived a life where they were exposed to high levels of chronic stress. So the basic formula is A plus B equals C. A, the pre-programming of your emotional computer, plus B, the amount of prolonged exposure to high levels of anxiety, equals C, which is the leader's level of emotional maturity. Did you like that? A plus B equals C. That's for all my mathematicians in here. And that is about as high the level of math that I can possibly give you. Because of the human variable, however, there are no cut and dry outcomes of every single human being. There are other factors that contribute. So I'm just kind of giving you a basic formula, but there are other factors that contribute. And some people are exposed to high levels of prolonged anxiety. They come from families that didn't have resources to really deal with toxic relationships and difficult relationships. So you would say, well, man, this person should be at the bottom of the barrel. And yet that person, man, just knows how to manage both internally and externally. And you kind of just say, but by the grace of God, it's kind of like one of those God stepped in and intervened. So what I'm talking about is just more in the general. In the general, this is how levels of emotional immaturity develop. So what I wanted to give you today was a way of thinking and examining the factors that impact our levels of emotional maturity. And again, the best way to think about that is A, the pre-programming of your emotional computer, plus B, the amount of prolonged exposure to high levels of anxiety, typically, all things being considered, equals C, the leader's level of emotional maturity. At UnBoxed, we encourage leaders to examine and to evaluate their levels of emotional maturity as a part of their strategy to create a healthy workplace culture. Because if you're not really honest with where your level of emotional maturity is, then it's going to be difficult to create a culture when, as we know, And what Unboxed recognizes is that leaders have the greatest impact on the health of the workplace culture. So the leader really does need to be clear about who they are, how they formed their way of managing and functioning in relationships, etc. I want to encourage you to take an honest look at your level of emotional maturity, as well as the impact that it is having on the organization that you lead. That's your assignment today, because this is how we unbox our leadership, and this is how we unbox our relationship. Take care.
Seasoned with Grace, Unboxed also provides healthy relationship training and leadership development for businesses, churches, and community organizations. For a free consultation to discuss your team's needs, please contact us at our website at swg-unboxed.org. That's swg-unboxed.org.